So I wanted to ask Nick, because you said really all Republicans are all the same, and we're talking about the candidates, obviously. So looking at the candidates that ran, including Trump, this year in the primary, I'm curious, and this goes to everybody. Is a Ted Cruz the same as? Now I'm missing the name, but the Ohio governor.
Kasich, not Ohio.
Kasich.
Yeah, Ohio.
All right, is a Ted Cruz the same as a Kasich? Do we really see them as being one and the same?
I mean, I'll answer that with very few differences. Actually, Kasich might actually be more extreme than Trump on a lot of issues, particularly social issues, woman's right to choose. Ted Cruz most definitely is going to be worse than Trump on some issues. So if those are my choices, no. If the choice is Jeb Bush, which he'll never get it, and no one like him will ever get that ever again, because nobody wants a Bush or that style of politician. But with Jeb Bush, I think there are some minor differences. I think he might be just as moderate on a woman's, on some social issues compared to a Ted Cruz, right? But comparing Ted Cruz to Donald Trump, I think Ted Cruz is actually worse than Donald Trump, and I think John Kasich is actually quieter and worse than Donald Trump on some key social issues. So that's my take. What's your guys' take?
Oh yeah, Ted Cruz was the scariest. Ted Cruz is a true believer.
Yeah,
you can see it in his eyes. I think Donald Trump is playing. I think he's playing a game. I think Ted Cruz is a true believer in that. And this is revisionist history. People forgot that Ted Cruz threatened to nuke the Middle East.
Yep, make the glass, make the sand turn into glass. Yep.
Yeah, turn sand to glass. I want to see if it glows at night. Yep. He wanted to carpet bomb a civilian city. Like there were things that went on during that primary that people have forgotten. Yep. To paint Trump like the worst thing that could have happened. Trump was a mercy. Mm-hmm. Like Trump, honestly, I'm not going to vote for Trump, but compared to what we could have got, which is Ted Cruz would have beat Hillary Clinton easily.
Yep.
Ted Cruz would have easily mopped the floor at Hillary Clinton. Trump was a mercy. Trump is the best thing that ever happened to Hillary Clinton in this election.
Absolutely. I agree. Nick, I don't know if you have anything on that.
What I was going to say is ultimately I don't look at their personality so much because it's really hard. We don't know these people. We don't interact with them every day. All we do is see like a TV persona. I mean, sure, we can judge them on that persona. We don't know what's really inside their hearts. And you shouldn't be judging any politician like that, to be honest. But what I will say is there are certain things that are consistent across all Republican candidates. And that is their policies. Their policies are very consistent. You can say that he did threaten to nuke the Middle East, but to be honest with you, that sentiment is something that's shared by Republicans far and wide, especially when you start looking at their policies. And it's something that even runs in the Democratic area as well. They just don't use the same rhetoric. So ignoring the rhetoric, ignoring the actual personalities of the people and just looking at straight up their policies, to me, they're just about all the same.
Well, I mean, I think you can't ignore the rhetoric. I think you can make the rhetoric less important than the policy, but at a certain point, rhetoric does have an effect on the way our country feels about certain things. The racist rhetoric, whether it's sort of more overt racist rhetoric, is going to embolden racists more than implicit racial rhetoric like super predator. That's just undeniable. Mm-hmm. I don't want to choose between the two, but I think that there is, the magnitude that there is a difference. There is a difference, and it is worth, it's worth acknowledging. Okay, there may not be a policy difference between, dropping 5 nukes and dropping 4, but there is a sort of perception. It will be perceived differently.
Well, let me say, and let me echo that a little bit, Brandon, because there is a forum where your words and your rhetoric matters more than anywhere else. And that's in the world of international relations. That's in our foreign policy. Like what our leaders actually say. And I mean, yeah, you have it in our stock markets too. But more importantly, like in terms of people dying quickly, it's foreign policy. Like if we have a Donald Trump who's out there with loose language and he's reeled it back in, right? Because somebody got his ear and told him, Kim Jong-un is going to respond based on your rhetoric, not based on your policy. They're not going to give you time to get to policy in foreign policy, because they have to act based on their judgment of your character, their judgment of your disposition, and their judgment of the words that you say. Like we have to reassure our allies abroad that we won't use nukes in Europe, with Chris Matthews' interview with Donald Trump, because that language is so destabilizing that it will cause them to enact policies preemptively that would then it would cause a feedback loop, which will lead us to enacting policies because of how they responded to our language. So it's a really, in that case, it really does matter about their rhetoric and the way they say things on the international stage, even more so than it does here locally and domestically, rather.
But I mean, on the flip side, though, and I think this is why Democrats are in a lot of trouble, because they can no longer affect it with with the way the internet works now, the way narratives are way the information is disseminated. They can no longer control the narrative well enough to keep their dirt hidden. Mm-hmm. And while they're in so much trouble, is because sometimes being overtly racist is better than it's better than telling people that you love, Mexicans, but then deporting 2 million of them. Mm-hmm. That sort of discrepancy between actions and words that the Democrats have has really hurt them in this election, because they come across as being incredibly disingenuous. Mm-hmm. Hillary Clinton comes across as being incredibly disingenuous, and ultimately that can be more off-putting to the American voter than simply being, a bombastic, gregarious asshole.